Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Dauntless LeadHERship. I am so excited to welcome Tracy Dellomo today, and I'll tell you why in a minute. First, just a reminder, subscribe, download, follow, tell your friends about our podcast, and we're happy to have you here with us. Today, I am inspired by and admire Tracy Dellomo, who has been my personal financial advisor from when I had huge student loans and lots of debt and nothing much to manage, all the way through to today, where I have very fortunately sold my business and do have some assets to manage. One thing I love about working with Tracy, she is agnostic and yet she understands everything about the market. She's honest and she asks great questions. Her organization, EagleView, which is part of UBS, manages almost $1.5 billion today. And if you ask her and her team, they'll tell you that clients work with them and stay with them because they offer honest, bespoke advice that respects individual needs and risk tolerance. And I personally can speak to this because, as I said, they ask really good questions before they make a recommendation. They also listen to questions. And something that I find with women and investing is we're often shy to ask questions about things we don't understand or take a risk because we're not fully cognizant of what that means. And I want today to encourage everybody to think differently about whatever assets you do have or assets you'll have in the future, and ask questions. If you don't have a financial advisor, get one. And hopefully it will be a woman like Tracy or Tracy herself. I feel one of my jobs, having semi-retired and sold my company, is to give as much business to smart, talented women as I possibly can. And so working with Tracy has been an honor and a privilege. She specializes in the complex needs of busy real estate owners. I am one today, executives, developers, and vendors. She's a problem solver, not just an expert, but a problem solver, providing custom financial solutions. And while she works with high net worth families and organizations, as I said, she started with me as a favor to my brother, who is the general counsel and partner in a real estate investment trust. And at that time, I was just trying to figure out how to pay off my debt and start saving for my kids' college educations. She has a wealth of experience providing strategies and solutions that other advisors often overlook. Specifically on the credit side, she manages very sophisticated relationships, things from business loans, mortgages, secured and unsecured lines of credit, financing, mezzanine, and others, for people who may want to start a business, may want to make an investment that they don't have the right portfolio to support yet. Then she acts as a liaison between her institutional clients, investment banks, and the UBS Business Development Group. And for those of you who know me, know that I did a lot of work in innovation. When I wanted to support a woman-run portfolio that focused on innovation, Tracy took me to meet Kathy who? Kathy
Oh, Kathy Wood.
Kathy Wood, who does go out on the edge to explore innovative instruments and innovative companies and invest there. Her experience is vast, from being at UBS since 2009, spending 15 years as a wealth manager at Merrill Lynch, that's where I met her. And prior to entering financial services, she had a career in commercial real estate. She's also a licensed insurance agent. We often don't think of insurance as part of our financial portfolio, and we need to, and a real estate broker. She lives with her husband, Cliff Packingham, in New York. She's a member of a corporate advisory board for Cold Spring Harbor Lab in Science and Tech. And by the way, she has lots of important initials after her name, certifications, which I'll have her explain. She's not just an avid golfer and water enthusiast, but she boats. She's a paddleboarder, a kayaker. And she and her husband, of course, are owners of a great dog, a Bennington Terrier. And with that, I bring you Tracy Dellomo. Thanks for being here, Tracy.
Thank you, Lisa, for that kind introduction. That was fantastic. And I can't believe we've known each other this long. It's really been a great time, a great relationship, and a lot has transpired over the years. And I'm happy to say we're here today.
Me too. And as I said up front, I believe that women in particular, but everyone needs to be thinking about their wealth management before they even have a lot of wealth. When I did my very first podcast with the women investment banker and lawyer that helped me transact the business, helped me sell it, they said, in particular, women entrepreneurs don't think quickly enough about an exit strategy. And they believe you should start thinking about that right away. And I think that's also true of personal investing, that we wait until it's maybe less risky, we have more to plan and think because we're afraid, we're confused, we don't have time, we're super busy, and then we wait too long and miss out on opportunities. So I want to talk about that. Do you see differences in how women invest and men and the decisions they make? But first, my number one question for all podcast guests is, what does dauntless mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I thought about this. And for me, it means fearless. It means never stopping, never quitting. It means tremendous fortitude. And, I think there's a lot of times that you doubt yourself and you think that it's too hard or you're wasting your time. And I think dauntless means you carry on and you succeed.
So when we think about dauntless leaders, I think of you and the way you lead your team and the way you've broken ground at Merrill and UBS and your fearlessness about attacking new financial opportunities and investments. How come you're not afraid? And what do those letters after your name mean and why are they important?
Now, I have a lot of designations. I got a certified private wealth advisory designation at Wharton, along with a SEMA, and I felt those were important things because it helped. Those designations help you understand risk. It helped you understand advanced planning techniques. So I wanted to be better than the average bear in this business. I wanted to work with high net worth people and I wanted to show I had that certification so that it also has those certifications. There's while I may not always be acting in a fiduciary relationship, those certifications do hold you to a higher standard because you take a pledge by getting those designations, you take a pledge that the client always comes first, and that was very important to me. So that's pretty much why I pursued those designations.
Do you ever get afraid of diving into the financial markets? I mean, especially now it's so volatile. I've worked with you through lots of crazy times. I asked this before, how come you feel like you can master these and help demystify it for your clients?
Well, obviously, age helps, experience helps. But I saw a quote not too long ago, and it's really stuck with me. And it said, we have to give up our addiction to certainty. That's super important. I have seen more bad decisions made by people in finance and in life by choosing what they think perceive as the no risk guaranteed decision.
If you look at what's happening in the job market today, in basically work your way out of being overhead by creating a revenue stream. And I think that in my last podcast, which was actually a head of product development for Spotify, she said something similar. Get into sales and generate revenue when you get out of school, because that's a way to be more, first of all, to learn and also to be more valuable to your company.
And to that point, sales is a great position for women. It is the great equalizer. There is it's a meritocracy. Sales is a meritocracy. No one can deny you your revenue because you're a woman. And I find in the business, there are people that think seat time, the amount of time you're in the office sitting in a seat, should be directly commensurate with their compensation and their success. And women often don't have the luxury of being in the office, for 12 hours a day, because they've got other things they need to do, whether it's family or other obligations. So I think sales is the great equalizer. You can't argue with the numbers. The numbers always tell the truth. And not at UBS, but my prior employer, they used to publish the numbers. So everybody in the office knew who was making what. And if there was ever a question as to why, Mr. So-and-so got the corner office and I didn't have it, you just went to the sheets and the numbers, and you could go to the manager and say, I don't understand. Why don't I have that corner office? I made more money than Bob over here. So I love sales for women. I really do.
That's, I think, an interesting insight. We talked about sales overall, but particularly sales for women and sales creating a meritocracy that women really haven't been able to access in many careers. Maybe that's what I'm going to call this podcast, Sales as a Great Equalizer, Meritocracy. But do you think that you should be promoted just because of your ability to generate revenue? And I know in your industry, it's certainly a key driver. But as I talk about leadership and leadership traits, there are other things beyond just revenue generation. What do you think?
No question. I mean, you need a well-rounded, and for us, we probably are not the highest revenue generating team, but obviously, you want a well-rounded team that focuses on client planning, and not everything boils down to revenue. I just like how that compensation enables again, women to be equalized in an organization. I think it's very important.
Well, while we're talking about things that are important to become a leader in financial services, you mentioned planning, which to me is associated with that listening aspect we talked about earlier and asking good questions. What else does somebody need to become a leader in the ranks of financial services and wealth management?
I think a lot of empathy for the clients, besides the ability to listen to the clients, but to be able to put yourself in the client's shoes. There are things that clients, have I don't want to call it a prejudice, but they have, people have bugaboos. I never buy this, or I don't want that, or I don't like that. Sometimes it's our job in this seat to figure out how to get the client to do what is the best thing for them, while also listening to their particular preferences, likes and dislikes. So that's an art. And that's why I talk about bespoke solutions for clients, because we've got lots of different personalities. We're dealing with them all the time. And after knowing people for this long, there's just certain things that people have a preference for, and you have to respect that and work around it. I could design the greatest portfolio ever, perfectly balanced with perfect returns. But if that client is not comfortable with that portfolio, the first time we have a blip in the market, they're going to turn around and want out. That is not successful. Success is designing something that will get the clients to where they need to be in a manner that they feel good about.
So in my industry, in marketing, we call that design thinking, right? Innovation and creation through thinking in the voice and words and vision of the consumer, customer, patient. That's exactly what you're doing from a financial services standpoint. So I would add that to your list of leadership skills, which is really mastering design thinking. Right about here is where our listeners could be hearing your sponsorship message. Consider sponsoring Dauntless Leadership to reach our wonderful, motivated, talented listeners who are thinking about upping their leadership game in all walks of life. Reach them, if you like, by letting me know at lisa@lisa-kent.com. We'd love to have you. What's your favorite part about working at UBS? I want to make sure we have an opportunity to talk about the organization and what should people know?
Okay, so here at UBS, I found it to be a very navigable size organization. It's easy to get to our top leaders. We have a wonderful open architecture platform. UBS offers all kinds of opportunities for us as advisors and the clients. And it's been a terrific place to work, as well as having a wonderful woman manager, Amanda Labrizzi, here in our local office on Long Island, that's been tremendously supportive of my team. And UBS has been smart enough to hire such great local management talent, where I think there's, not a lot of talent in the marketplace, and they have got some of the greatest managers on a local basis here.
Okay, so people matter, and I've heard you say it's important to have a manager who always has your back. And
Yes.
then I'll add that to the list of
Yeah.
leadership skills too. Really knowing when to be a roadblock, not a roadblock, a facilitator for your team and stand up for them, whether they need resources or whether they need just support when things are difficult. And I think a lot of leaders cave at that point, and it sounds like yours does not, which is great. You mentioned something which I found very intriguing, which is we have to let go of our addiction to certainty. And I think that's part of why I was successful in business. People would say I'm good with the MSU, the make stuff or other words up form of management, just relying on experience I had in the past, trusting and having confidence in my ability, but you have to sometimes make stuff up, fake it till you make it. I think that's a unique characteristic and something that if you're saying we need to think about it in investing, that it's hard to teach people that. And you mentioned also that women may be less comfortable taking a job that's commission based. It feels like the same muscle. So how do we help people get more comfortable? I have a whole chapter in my book about the military and what they call volatility, uncertainty.
Mm.
I can't remember what the C is, and ambiguity. And that's really, I think the military is good at teaching, dealing with VUCA. I'm not sure financial services are or consumer packaged goods are in A, dealing with it, and B, teaching people to be comfortable with it.
Hmm. I think women have great intuitive tendencies. I think intuition is very important. I think intuition um, is a big part of it. But I think in order to embrace risk and give up again the addiction to certainty, I think you need to be comfortable with yourself, and you have to really learn to rely on your own resources and have confidence in yourself. I don't know that that can be taught, but I know that that can be acquired over time.
Okay. So
And I
maybe
think
it's something you develop as
I
you
think it's a
age.
practice. Exactly.
By the way, the C is complexity, which is also pretty much everything we deal with. I know you do. And I wanted to ask you about how you grew over the years and how did you overcome your any kind of barriers? It sounds like not so much being a woman, but maybe in terms of learning new vehicles, tools, and bringing them to clients, moving beyond real estate. Talk a little bit about your journey.
So again, I came from real estate, and I was a little older than most people who had, this is not a business where, a 20-year-old is going to come into and succeed. I'm sure there's been a few of them, but it's generally not that. This is a great business that's almost for a second career. And I was in commercial real estate, specifically leasing and commercial real estate. So it was a great sales experience. One of those jobs you just had to make it happen. That you weren't given a lot of resources, and you had to make it happen. I think that was great training, great background, and it taught me how to create something out of nothing. Here's a phone book, figure it out, and I was
And for
very
those of you who don't know what a phone book is or
exactly.
information, it's a list of people and their way to reach them, which used to be hardline phone number.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that taught me a lot. And I think that I was very fortunate. You cannot underestimate luck. I'd rather be lucky than good. We had, while I was in commercial real estate, I knew a real estate family, and we eventually brought that real estate family public when I was at Merrill Lynch. And while everybody else was sitting around, I think, with this new issue, it was a very small IPO. It was not a hot IPO at the time when we were having IPOs come out at 10 and double in a day. And I was told by the manager that I could have as many shares as I wanted of this new stock. And I created my own little dog and pony show for it because I knew all of how to find the information on who did the glass work in that family's buildings, who ran the everything, who were the other partners of that real estate family in the other buildings that had something called operating units, which you know it's they're convertible to stock. So there were a number of people. So I made myself the expert in that stock. And I went out and created basically a book business based on that one lucky break. It was one lucky break. And so I have to give credit to luck. It was being at the right place in the right time, but seizing the opportunity and really um, going for it and not being afraid to pick up the phone and call people and say, look, would you like to participate in this opportunity? And I think it's old fashioned hard work.
Well, I too feel like luck went along with the hard work, but you're more likely to be lucky if people see you as a reliable hard worker.
Right.
At least that's my feeling. And I love that you said wealth management is good for a second career because I'm looking for a third career now.
Mhm.
So maybe we should talk about that
Yeah.
later. But any leaders or allies that have really inspired you within your organization, within UBS, Merrill, or just out in the world?
Well, I have to give credit to my neighbor who just turned 88. She had worked for Merrill Lynch. She was my neighbor, and she saw how hard I was working at real estate and what I was doing. And she was the one who convinced me and said, You would be great in this business, and it would be a much better um, life for you. It would be less volatile because one thing I can tell you about commercial real estate is there are times you could work on deals for several years and they fall apart, and you may go with no compensation for several years and then get a big windfall. So she said, I think you'd have a much better life if you came into this business. And that was my neighbor, Beverly. And she sent me over to Merrill Lynch to interview with the manager there, and I got the offer, and it was great, and that's sort of how I got my start. So I have to, I'm very grateful. Again, I guess when we talk about women reaching out to women, she was my neighbor, she was my friend's mother, and she reached out to me and saw something that to encourage me, and I think that's really important to do for other people.
Well, shout out to Beverly, and I agree. One of the themes of this podcast is women helping women. And that's a really nice segue to the discussion about the importance of networking and how, so there was the mom of one of your friends, how to find people that you will learn from, enjoy, because networking's hard and you want to enjoy the interaction. And hopefully that might give you a hand up someday. How do you find that? And of course, this also is relevant to finding new clients.
Right. I think I'm probably doing less networking today, just a matter of the age process, and you're relying on, centers of influence or current clients for referrals. But I actually had a great networking group, and we still talk about it to this day. A friend of mine who is at Merrill founded the Long Island chapter of it was called uh, Executive Women's Golf. It has a new name now. I just can't really remember what it is. The organization morphed, but it was the greatest group ever. And I actually made friends from all over that I've been friends with for over 30 years. And we combined, and I thought that was particularly impactful, that we combined a sport with networking.
Hmm. I
And
just, oh,
yes.
sorry, go ahead.
No, but it was focused on women in business, not just a ladies golf group. This was executive women's golf. So it brought like-minded people together and created a great networking opportunity.
Why I interrupted you. I literally just had a lunch with somebody who is the CEO of an ad agency in healthcare. And she said, this year I'm going to improve my golf game because I feel like it's important to networking. And I said, really, in 2025, it's still important to be able to golf? And she said, well, I'm not sure, but that's what I think in healthcare. So today, I guess golfing is still really important. It's one thing that I never got good at. And so I had to find other creative ways to build and maintain a network. But whatever you choose to do, folks who are out there listening, pick a group of people that you can learn from, that you can follow as they ride up and pull other women up with you. I think that's our job. Have you read anything, listened to anything recently that you would recommend to our listeners?
I'm trying to think. Along a business book, I I read this book many, many years ago, and it just had its 50th anniversary. It is incredibly long, and I've been told if you buy it in hard copy, what you should do is rip it in half
Hmm.
so that you don't get overwhelmed. You read one half and then pick up the other half. I've been doing it on Audible, and what I do is when I get overwhelmed with it because it's so long, I'll do another book in between. But it's Robert Caro's The Power Broker about Robert Moses.
Okay. I'll
And
super that when we
it
talk about this.
yeah, it's unbelievable.
The Power Broker.
Hmm. It
Okay.
just celebrated its 50th year.
Mhm.
And it was a very, very interesting period of time. It's the history of Robert Moses, but it also brings in a lot of colorful figures from New York that were very important. Al Smith, Francis Perkins. It was a very interesting period of time for reformers in New York, and Robert Moses' rise to fame, and it's fascinating, and it was a very long period of time, and it shaped our New York landscape as far as highways and throughways, and it's a fascinating read.
Do you mentor any people, men or women in the organization? How do people find you as a mentor? How do you find mentees?
Well, I think, our mentorship is within our team, and it was with our newest member. I think that was a big part of the decision to come back to the office. I don't think work from home is conducive to mentoring. I think as a team leader, I had an obligation to come back to the office so that these younger people could learn. I strongly believe in that. I think it's very, very hard. I met a young woman that worked remotely 100% the other day, and she told me she loves it, et cetera, et cetera. And my answer to her is, well, what happens, what about even the social aspect of going out with your coworkers for a drink after work or doing something after work? I just, that's got to be very isolating. So it's one opinion, but I think that was very important, and that's how my presence here in the office is mentoring other people every day.
It's interesting. We've been having that conversation. Different companies and organizations feel differently about it. I get my energy from working with people too, and I like to be able to yell to somebody across the table or across the room, and I like them to be able to turn their chair around and ask me a question. I feel like it's a much easier interaction than setting up a Zoom call or a meeting to ask that question. But I completely understand that talent has gotten used to having more flexibility. And I founded a company that was about offering women an opportunity to work flexibly and virtually. So I too am torn. I do think for younger people, you're missing out if you're not in the office at least a good chunk of the time, because there's so much informal learning that you can't possibly schedule. And
Right.
and you miss out on that, not to mention the networking and the social interaction. And to this day, some of my most important clients and contacts are people I met when I was green and
Of
working at
course.
Johnson and Johnson or Procter and Gamble, and I would hate to see people miss out on that. But it is controversial. The last podcast was with, I mentioned to you, somebody from Spotify, and Spotify has gone out and publicly stated we are not going to ask people to come into the office. We trust them to get their work done. And that's very attractive to a lot of people looking for empowering jobs. So
But
it's
and there's nobody saying that you can't do both. But I
yeah.
think I think that in order to be a mentor, especially coming at it from someone with experience who's older, you have an obligation to interact with the younger people in your company, and the way you're going to do that is probably in person.
So what was the best advice you got in your career, if any? And what would you give as advice for younger people looking to up the ante in terms of leadership skills and success in general?
Mm, interesting. I don't know if it was the best advice, but something that's always stuck with me when I've had to make, I don't want to say an uncomfortable choice, but perhaps I had to have an interaction that wasn't 100% positive because um, we either represented the trustee on the account and not the beneficiary on the account. Our relationship it gets sticky there. And somebody once said to me, you can't be everybody's friend. You
Mm.
can't be everybody's friend. So you have to take a stand. And that At the time, I was so shocked that they said it to me because they were inferring that I was trying to be everybody's friend. But it made me look at myself and say, you know what? At a certain point, you do have to take a stand, even if it's uncomfortable. And if we have an account where we're, the trustee is in charge and a beneficiary calls us about that account, we have to say, no, we can't share this with you, because we're there. They should not be privy to that information. So you have to be able to say no. So I thought that was an interesting piece of advice.
That's two pieces of advice. One, you can't be everybody's friend. And I think you hear that a lot in parenting advice too. And the second one is you have to be able to say no. And I think both of those are really important to moving up and to becoming a better leader. Anything else you want folks to know?
It's been a great career. It's been a great career, and I encourage people, if they're interested in pursuing it, on any level, even though it might take you a very long time. Our associate here, Rosario, started off at several different places and several roles that were not not glamorous roles, until he worked his way up and could get to UBS to be a wealth planner and eventually join our team. So I think, again, it's a great place to work. It's a great place of a career. It's a great career. And I think it is particularly good for women. I really do.
Excellent. So I'm going to close, as I always do, with the immortal words of my mom, whom you knew, Arlene Barnett, who
Yeah.
always told me, it doesn't matter if you know what you want to be when you grow up, just what you want to do next. So thanks for being here, Tracy.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. And those were great words from your mom. Great words of wisdom. Very true.